This is part 5 of our family betrayal series. But tonight is unlike anything we've shared before. We're uncovering Isabella's heartbreaking story, a night meant for joy and love, turned into a memory of fear and pain. Christmas Eve 2019. The night that should have been filled with laughter, presents, and family warmth, instead became the night that shattered a 20-year-old girl's world forever. What happened in that house, decorated with twinkling lights and holiday cheer, would teach Isabella the most devastating lesson of her life: that sometimes the people we trust most are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. Before we continue deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos, because Isabella's story will remind you that evil doesn't take holidays, and that family gatherings can sometimes hide the darkest secrets. Isabella Maria Fernandez was the kind of young woman who made Christmas magical for everyone around her. At 20 years old, she was a junior at San Diego State University studying childhood development, with dreams of becoming an elementary school teacher who could make learning as joyful as unwrapping presents on Christmas morning. Her professors loved her enthusiasm, her classmates appreciated her warm heart, and her family, well, her family saw her as the bright star that made every holiday gathering worth celebrating. The Fernandez family had always been close-knit, the kind of Mexican-American family where Christmas wasn't just a day, but a season-long celebration of love, tradition, and togetherness. Isabella's parents, Miguel and Rosa, had worked hard to build a life in San Diego that honored their heritage while embracing their American dreams. Miguel owned a small but successful landscaping business, while Rosa taught ESL classes at the local community college. They had raised Isabella and her 2 younger brothers, Carlos and Diego, with deep respect for family values and the understanding that family always came first. But if you asked Isabella who made every Christmas truly special, who brought the laughter and magic that turned ordinary holiday gatherings into memories that lasted a lifetime, she would tell you without hesitation that it was her Uncle Sam. Samuel Rodriguez was Miguel's younger brother, and at 42 he was the family member who seemed to have captured the spirit of Christmas and carried it with him throughout the entire year. While other adults stressed about holiday preparations and worried about money, Uncle Sam was the one organizing elaborate gift exchanges, planning surprise activities for the children, and ensuring that every family member felt special and loved during the holiday season. Uncle Sam was like Santa Claus, and the best friend you ever had rolled into one person, Isabella would later remember. From the time I was little, he made every Christmas feel like a fairy tale. He remembered everyone's favorite cookies, everyone's wish list items, even the smallest details that made each person feel seen and valued. The bond between Isabella and Uncle Sam had been building since her earliest memories, but it had deepened significantly during her college years as he positioned himself as her mentor, supporter, and the adult who understood her dreams better than anyone else. Uncle Sam had never married, claiming that he was too busy building his successful auto repair business and taking care of his extended family to settle down with just one person. "I've got all the family I need right here," he would say during holiday toasts, raising his glass to encompass everyone gathered around the Fernandez dining table. His devotion to family seemed genuine and touching, and everyone appreciated how he filled the role of the fun uncle who made ordinary moments extraordinary. As Christmas 2019 approached, Uncle Sam outdid himself in planning what he called the most magical Christmas the Fernandez family has ever experienced. He coordinated with Rosa to organize a potluck dinner that would feed 30 people, arranged for a professional photographer to capture family portraits, and even hired a mariachi band to perform traditional Mexican Christmas carols. But most importantly to Isabella, Uncle Sam had planned special one-on-one time with each family member to give them personalized gifts and attention. "This Christmas is going to be perfect," Uncle Sam told Isabella during a phone call 3 days before Christmas Eve. "I've got something very special planned for you, something that shows how proud I am of the amazing woman you've become. You're not my little niece anymore, Isabella. You're a beautiful, intelligent adult who deserves to be celebrated." The conversation left Isabella feeling warm and appreciated, though there was something in Uncle Sam's tone that she couldn't quite identify, something that made her feel both special and slightly uncomfortable. Isabella arrived home from college on December 22nd, her car packed with wrapped presents and her heart full of excitement about the family celebration ahead. The Fernandez house was already transformed into a Christmas wonderland, with lights twinkling from every surface, a massive tree dominating the living room, and the scent of Rosa's traditional holiday baking filling every corner. Uncle Sam was there to greet Isabella when she walked through the front door, enveloping her in one of his famous bear hugs that lasted just a moment longer than she remembered from previous years. "There's my college girl," Uncle Sam said, holding Isabella at arm's length and studying her face with an intensity that made her slightly self-conscious. "You look so grown up, so beautiful. College life is obviously agreeing with you." His hands remained on her shoulders as he spoke, his thumbs stroking the fabric of her sweater in a way that felt more intimate than avuncular. Isabella smiled and thanked him for his compliments, but she found herself stepping back slightly to create some distance between them. The next 2 days passed in the familiar rhythm of holiday preparation and family time. Isabella helped her mother with cooking, played video games with her younger brothers, and enjoyed the comfortable chaos of a house full of relatives preparing for Christmas Eve. Uncle Sam was everywhere, helping with decorations, organizing activities, and maintaining his role as the family's unofficial cruise director. But Isabella began to notice that his attention to her felt different from previous years, more focused, more personal, more intense. "Isabella, can you help me bring in some supplies for my truck?" Uncle Sam asked on the afternoon of December 23rd, when most of the family was busy with cooking preparations. "I've got some special decorations that need to be set up before tomorrow night." Isabella agreed to help, as she had done countless times over the years, but as they walked toward Uncle Sam's pickup truck parked in the driveway, she felt a strange sense of unease that she couldn't explain. As they reached the truck, Uncle Sam didn't immediately open the tailgate or point to any decorations that needed to be carried inside. Instead, he turned to face Isabella with an expression that was unlike any she had ever seen from him before. "Isabella," he said, his voice taking on a tone that was both serious and intimate, "there's something I need to tell you about how I feel, about how special you are to me." The words sent a chill down Isabella's spine, but before she could respond or step away, her younger brother Carlos appeared in the doorway, calling for help in the kitchen, interrupting the moment and allowing Isabella to escape back into the safety of the house. "What's your most cherished holiday memory? Share it below, because what happens next will forever change how Isabella remembers Christmas." Christmas Eve 2019 dawned bright and clear in San Diego, with the kind of perfect weather that made the holiday feel magical and full of possibility. The Fernandez house was a hive of activity as family members arrived throughout the day, bringing dishes for the potluck dinner, presents for the gift exchange, and the kind of joyful energy that made Christmas Eve feel like the most wonderful night of the year. Isabella threw herself into the holiday preparations, helping her mother with last-minute cooking, playing with her young cousins, and trying to push aside the uncomfortable moment with Uncle Sam from the previous day. She told herself that she had misinterpreted his words, that her college psychology classes had made her overly sensitive to interpersonal dynamics, that Uncle Sam was just being his usual affectionate, supportive self. As the afternoon progressed and more relatives arrived, the house filled with the sounds of laughter, conversation, and traditional Mexican Christmas music. Uncle Sam was in his element, greeting each family member with enthusiasm, organizing impromptu dance sessions in the living room, and ensuring that everyone felt welcomed and celebrated. To anyone watching, he was the perfect uncle. Generous, fun-loving, and devoted to his family's happiness. But Isabella noticed things about Uncle Sam's behavior that day that she had never paid attention to before. The way his eyes followed her movements around the house, the way he found excuses to touch her shoulder, her back, her hand when he spoke to her, the way he positioned himself near her during family photos, his arm around her waist, his body pressed just a little too close to hers. individual moments that seemed innocent enough, but together created a pattern that made Isabella increasingly uncomfortable. "Isabella, you look absolutely stunning tonight," Uncle Sam whispered to her during the family dinner, his breath warm against her ear as he leaned over her chair to refill her wine glass. "That dress, the way your hair catches the light. You're not my little niece anymore. You're a beautiful woman who deserves to be appreciated." The compliment made Isabella's skin crawl, but with 30 family members gathered around the dining table, she simply smiled and thanked him, not wanting to create a scene during Christmas Eve dinner. As the evening progressed, the family scattered throughout the house in the relaxed way that marked the end of a successful holiday gathering. The older relatives settled in the living room to share stories and sip coffee, while the teenagers disappeared into the den to play video games and gossip about school. Some family members stepped outside to enjoy the mild San Diego evening air and smoke cigarettes away from the children. Isabella found herself helping with dishes in the kitchen, grateful for the mindless activity that kept her hands busy and her mind distracted from Uncle Sam's increasingly inappropriate attention. Around 10 o'clock, as the party began to wind down and some relatives started making noises about heading home, Uncle Sam appeared in the kitchen doorway with his usual charming smile. "Isabella, I've got your special Christmas present ready," he announced. "It's something I've been working on for months, and I want to give it to you privately so we can really talk about what it means." Isabella's heart started racing, but with her mother and aunt standing just a few feet away, she felt she had no choice but to agree to Uncle Sam's request. "The present is in my office upstairs," Uncle Sam continued, his voice taking on that intimate tone that Isabella had learned to dread. "It'll just take a few minutes, and then you can come back down and enjoy the rest of the party." Isabella's instincts screamed at her to refuse, to make an excuse, to stay in the safety of the kitchen with her mother and aunt. But Uncle Sam was family. He had been her trusted uncle for 20 years, and the idea of openly refusing his Christmas gift felt impossible in front of her relatives. Isabella followed Uncle Sam up the stairs to the second floor of the house, where Miguel had converted a small bedroom into a home office. The room was quiet and isolated from the party sounds below, lit only by a small desk lamp that created intimate shadows on the walls. Uncle Sam closed the door behind them, and Isabella immediately felt trapped in a way she had never experienced before. "I've been waiting all year to give this to you," Uncle Sam said, moving closer to Isabella in the small space. But instead of reaching for a wrapped present or opening a drawer, he reached for Isabella herself, his hands moving to her waist in a way that was unmistakably inappropriate. "You're so beautiful, Isabella, so special. I've watched you grow up into this incredible woman, and I can't keep pretending that I don't have feelings for you." What happened next in that small, dimly lit office would shatter Isabella's understanding of family, trust, and safety in ways that would take years to heal. The man who had been her protector, her supporter, her Christmas magic maker, became her attacker. While her family celebrated Christmas Eve just one floor below, unaware that their beloved Uncle Sam was violating the trust they had placed in him for decades, he stole something from Isabella that could never be returned. The details of what happened are too painful and too private to share in their entirety, but the impact was immediate and devastating. Uncle Sam used the isolation of the office, the noise of the party below to mask any sounds, and Isabella's complete shock and disbelief to commit acts that would haunt her for years to come. When she tried to resist, he reminded her that her family was downstairs, that crying out would ruin Christmas for everyone, that no one would believe her word against his. "This is our special secret," Uncle Sam whispered when it was over, his voice returning to the caring uncle tone that Isabella had trusted all her life. "This is what happens when little girls grow up into beautiful women. Your family loves me, Isabella. They depend on me. You wouldn't want to hurt them by telling them something that would destroy our family, would you?" The threats were wrapped in the language of love and protection, but Isabella understood them for what they truly were. Warnings about what would happen if she ever spoke about what Uncle Sam had done to her. Isabella somehow managed to compose herself enough to return to the Christmas Eve party, though she felt like she was moving through a nightmare that had invaded her real life. Uncle Sam had given her a few minutes alone in the office to fix her makeup and hair, as if the assault had been nothing more than a minor wardrobe malfunction that needed to be corrected before rejoining polite company. The sounds of laughter and music from downstairs felt surreal and distant as Isabella looked at herself in the small mirror hanging on the office wall. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with shock, her hands trembling as she tried to smooth down her hair and straighten her dress. But the most disturbing thing was how normal she looked. How the violation she had just experienced had left no visible marks that would alert her family to what had happened. When Isabella finally made her way back downstairs, Uncle Sam was already there, laughing with her cousins and helping her mother serve dessert, as if nothing had happened. His ability to immediately return to his role as the beloved family uncle was almost more disturbing than the assault itself. How could he sound so normal, so caring, so much like the Uncle Sam she had known and loved all her life, after what he had just done to her? "Isabella, there you are," Rosa called out when she spotted her daughter in the doorway. "Uncle Sam said he gave you your special Christmas present. How wonderful! He's been working on something secret for you for months." Isabella forced a smile and nodded, unable to find her voice to respond to her mother's innocent enthusiasm. The irony of her mother's words, that Uncle Sam had indeed been planning this special present for months, made Isabella feel sick to her stomach. The rest of Christmas Eve passed in a blur of forced smiles and mechanical participation in family activities. Isabella opened the other presents under the tree, sang Christmas carols with her relatives, and even managed to laugh at her grandfather's terrible jokes. But inside, she felt like she was watching someone else live her life while she floated outside her own body, observing the holiday celebration from a great distance. Uncle Sam made sure to hug Isabella goodbye when the party finally ended and relatives began heading home. "Thank you for such a wonderful Christmas Eve," he said loud enough for her parents to hear, but his hands lingered on her back and his voice carried an undertone that only she could understand. "I hope you'll always remember how special tonight was for both of us." Isabella managed to nod and return his hug, but every fiber of her being wanted to scream and run away from his touch. That night, Isabella lay in her childhood bedroom staring at the ceiling and trying to process what had happened to her. The Christmas lights her mother had strung around her window cast cheerful patterns on the walls, but instead of feeling festive, they seemed to mock her pain. How could the world look exactly the same when everything had changed so fundamentally? How could her family be sleeping peacefully just down the hall when the person they trusted most had just committed such a terrible crime? The days following Christmas Eve were a blur of continued holiday celebrations that Isabella had to endure while carrying her devastating secret. Extended family members continued to visit. Neighbors stopped by with cookies and well wishes, and Uncle Sam remained a constant presence, helping with cleanup, organizing leftover storage, and maintaining his role as the devoted family member who made everyone else's lives easier and more joyful. Each interaction with Uncle Sam was torture for Isabella. He would find ways to be alone with her for brief moments, making comments about their special time together, and reminding her of the consequences of speaking up. "Your parents are so proud of how close our family is," he would say while helping carry dishes to the kitchen. "It would break their hearts if they thought there was conflict between us. You're a smart girl, Isabella. You understand how important family harmony is." Isabella returned to San Diego State in early January 2020, desperate to escape the house where she had been assaulted and to find some distance from Uncle Sam's constant presence. But instead of feeling relief at being back on campus, Isabella found herself struggling with overwhelming anxiety, depression, and a constant sense of hypervigilance that made it impossible to concentrate on her classes or enjoy time with her friends. Sleep became elusive and unreliable. Every time Isabella closed her eyes, she was back in that office with Uncle Sam, reliving the assault and feeling trapped all over again. She would wake up in cold sweats, sometimes crying out loud enough to wake her roommate, who was growing increasingly concerned about Isabella's dramatic change in behavior since returning from Christmas break. "Are you sure you're okay?" her roommate Jennifer asked repeatedly. "You haven't seemed like yourself since you got back from San Diego. Did something happen at home?" Isabella wanted desperately to tell Jennifer about Uncle Sam, but the words simply wouldn't come. How could she explain that her beloved uncle, the man her family adored and depended on, had sexually assaulted her during Christmas Eve dinner? Who would believe such a story about someone who was universally loved and respected? Isabella's academic performance began to suffer immediately. She missed classes, failed to turn in assignments, and performed poorly on exams that should have been easy for someone with her intelligence and dedication. Her favorite professor, Dr. Sarah Johnson, noticed the dramatic change and asked Isabella to stay after child development class one afternoon to discuss her declining grades. "This isn't like you, Isabella," Dr. Johnson said with genuine concern. "You're one of my brightest students, but something seems to have changed since winter break. Are you dealing with family stress? Health problems? Financial difficulties?" The irony of Dr. Johnson's question about family stress was almost too much for Isabella to bear. Her family was indeed the source of her stress, but not in any way that her professor could understand or help with. If you're still here, drop "still here" in the comments, because what Isabella decides to do next will define the rest of her life. 3 months after the Christmas Eve assault, Isabella reached a breaking point that would change the trajectory of her life forever. She was sitting in her dorm room on a Thursday evening in March 2020, supposedly working on a research paper about childhood trauma and its long-term effects, when the cruel irony of her academic work became too much to bear. Here she was, studying the very psychological wounds that Uncle Sam had inflicted on her, while she remained silent about her own experience. The breaking point came when Uncle Sam called her cell phone that evening, ostensibly to check on her college progress, but actually to maintain his psychological control over her. "I've been thinking about our special Christmas together," he said in that intimate voice that now made Isabella's skin crawl. "Spring break is coming up soon. Maybe you and I could take a little trip together, just the two of us. I know some beautiful places where we could spend quality time and really connect." The suggestion of another isolated situation with Uncle Sam triggered something in Isabella that she hadn't felt since the assault. Pure, protective rage. Not just anger at what he had done to her, but fury at his assumption that she would continue to be his victim, that she would willingly put herself in danger again, that she would help him continue his pattern of abuse. For the first time since Christmas Eve, Isabella found her voice. "No," she said firmly. "I don't want to go anywhere with you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want you to call me anymore." The words felt strange and powerful coming out of her mouth after months of silence and compliance. Uncle Sam's response revealed the manipulative predator beneath his caring facade. "Now, Isabella, don't be dramatic," he said, his voice taking on a warning tone. "We both know how much your family depends on me. Your father's business, your mother's connections in the community, your brother's college plans. I'm involved in all of it. You wouldn't want to say or do anything that might jeopardize your family's future, would you?" But something fundamental had shifted in Isabella during that phone call. Uncle Sam's threats, which had terrified her for months, now sounded like the desperate manipulations of someone who was afraid of losing control. She realized that her silence wasn't protecting her family. It was protecting him. And she was tired of being the one who carried the burden of his crimes, while he continued to play the role of the beloved uncle. The next morning, Isabella made an appointment with a counselor at the university's Student Health Center. Dr. Maria Santos specialized in trauma counseling and had extensive experience working with survivors of sexual assault. When Isabella walked into her office that Friday afternoon, she wasn't sure she would be able to find the words to describe what had happened to her during Christmas Eve. But Dr. Santos's gentle, non-judgmental approach made it possible for Isabella to begin sharing her story. "What happened to you was not your fault. Dr. Santos told Isabella after hearing about the assault and the months of silence that followed. Your uncle used his position of trust and authority to manipulate you into a vulnerable situation, and then he used fear and guilt to keep you silent. That's a classic pattern of predatory behavior, and none of it reflects anything about your character or your choices. For the first time since Christmas Eve, Isabella felt like someone truly understood what she had experienced. Dr. Santos helped her realize that Uncle Sam's threats about destroying the family were manipulative tactics designed to maintain his control over her. Predators rely on their victims' love for their families to keep them silent, Dr. Santos explained. But the truth is that your family deserves to know who this man really is, and they deserve the chance to protect you and support you. Over the next several weeks, Dr. Santos worked with Isabella to develop a plan for sharing her story with her family and, if Isabella chose, with law enforcement. The process was slow and sometimes painful, but for the first time in months, Isabella began to feel like she was reclaiming some control over her own life. The decision to tell her parents was the most terrifying choice Isabella had ever made. Dr. Santos helped her practice what she wanted to say, prepared her for various possible reactions, and reminded her repeatedly that whatever happened, she was doing the right thing by speaking her truth. They decided that Isabella would call her mother first, as Rosa had always been her primary confidant and emotional support. The phone call took place on a Saturday morning in late March, when Isabella knew her father would be at work and her brothers would be busy with their own activities. Isabella's hands shook as she dialed her mother's number, but her voice was steady when Rosa answered the phone with her usual warm greeting. "Mommy, there's something I need to tell you," Isabella began, using the childhood name for her mother that conveyed both love and vulnerability. "Something that happened on Christmas Eve. Something that Uncle Sam did to me." The words came slowly at first, but as Isabella began to describe what had happened in Miguel's office, they flowed with increasing confidence and clarity. Rosa's reaction was everything Dr. Santos had prepared Isabella for and more. Her mother's immediate response was protective disbelief. Not disbelief in Isabella's story, but disbelief that such a terrible thing could have happened to her daughter while she was in the same house, celebrating Christmas with their entire family. The guilt and horror in Rosa's voice were heartbreaking, but they were also validating for Isabella, who had spent months wondering if her family would believe her or blame her for what had happened. "Mija, why didn't you tell me immediately?" Rosa asked through tears. "Why did you carry this alone for so many months?" Isabella was ready for this question and explained about Uncle Sam's threats, about her fear that speaking up would destroy the family, and about the shame and self-blame that had kept her silent for so long. "We're going to handle this," Rosa promised her daughter, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Your father and I are going to handle this, and Sam is never going to have the opportunity to hurt you or anyone else ever again." The support from her mother was overwhelming and healing in ways Isabella hadn't expected. She had spent months terrified that telling the truth would destroy her family, but instead, it was making them stronger and more united than ever. The confrontation with Uncle Sam took place the following weekend, when Isabella came home from college to meet with her parents and plan their response to what she had revealed. Miguel's reaction to learning about his brother's assault on Isabella was immediate and intense, a combination of protective rage, guilt over not recognizing the warning signs, and determination to ensure that Sam faced consequences for his actions. "I'm going to kill him," Miguel said when Rosa finished sharing what Isabella had told her. "I'm going to find Sam, and I'm going to kill him with my bare hands." Isabella and Rosa had to work together to talk Miguel down from making any rash decisions that would only make the situation worse and potentially land him in legal trouble. They needed to handle this carefully and legally, not with vigilante justice that would accomplish nothing except destroying more lives. The family meeting with Uncle Sam took place at the Fernandez house on a Sunday afternoon when Isabella's younger brothers were safely away at friends' houses. Miguel called his brother and asked him to come over to discuss important family business without revealing the true nature of what they needed to talk about. When Uncle Sam arrived at the house with his usual cheerful demeanor, he was met by Miguel's grim face and Rosa's tear-stained eyes. "We need to talk about what you did to Isabella on Christmas Eve," Miguel said without preamble, his voice deadly quiet. Uncle Sam's initial reaction was the predictable combination of shock, confusion, and denial that Dr. Santos had warned Isabella to expect. But as Miguel continued to share the details of what Isabella had revealed, Sam's expression shifted from innocent confusion to desperate calculation. "That's impossible," Uncle Sam said, his voice taking on the smooth, persuasive tone he had perfected over years of manipulation. "Isabella is obviously having some kind of psychological break. College stress, maybe experimenting with drugs or alcohol. These kinds of delusions are more common than you might think among young women her age. I'm concerned about her mental health." But Miguel and Rosa were prepared for their brother's attempts to gaslight them and discredit Isabella's story. Dr. Santos had warned them that predators typically respond to exposure with a predictable pattern of denial, minimization, and victim blaming. "Isabella has been working with a professional counselor for weeks," Rosa told Sam firmly. "She's not delusional, she's not lying, and she's not having a breakdown. She's a trauma survivor who finally found the courage to speak her truth." The conversation escalated as Uncle Sam realized that his usual manipulation tactics weren't working on his brother and sister-in-law. He tried appealing to family loyalty, reminding them of all the ways he had contributed to family celebrations and supported family members over the years. He suggested that Isabella was seeking attention or trying to create drama for reasons only she understood. When those strategies failed, he became angry and threatening. "You're making a huge mistake," Uncle Sam told Miguel and Rosa, as it became clear that they were not going to be swayed by his denials. "When Isabella admits she made this up, when your family realizes what you've thrown away based on the lies of a confused college girl, don't expect me to forgive you. You'll regret choosing her word over mine." The threat was clear, but it no longer had the power to intimidate a family that had finally seen Uncle Sam for who he really was. "Get out," Miguel said quietly, his voice shaking with emotion. "Get out of my house and don't ever come back. If you ever try to contact Isabella or any member of this family again, we will call the police immediately." Uncle Sam's final words as he left revealed the narcissistic rage that had been hidden beneath his charming facade for so many years. With Uncle Sam permanently banned from their lives, the Fernandez family began the long process of healing from the trauma he had inflicted on them. Isabella continued working with Dr. Santos, who helped her understand that her assault was part of a larger pattern of predatory behavior that likely involved other victims. The decision to file a police report was difficult but necessary, both for Isabella's own sense of justice and to protect other potential victims. Detective Lisa Rodriguez, who specialized in sexual assault cases, was compassionate and professional in her handling of Isabella's case. The investigation was thorough despite the challenges of prosecuting a case where several months had passed since the assault. During the process, another victim came forward, a 23-year-old woman named Carmen who had been assaulted by Uncle Sam 2 years earlier during a different family celebration. Carmen's story contained chilling similarities to Isabella's experience. The same pattern of grooming and manipulation, the same exploitation of family trust, the same threats about maintaining silence to protect family harmony. The discovery of a second victim strengthened the legal case considerably and helped both women feel less alone in their experiences with Uncle Sam's predatory behavior. The trial took place 10 months after Isabella first reported the assault to police. Testifying against Uncle Sam was one of the most difficult experiences of Isabella's life, requiring her to describe the assault in detail while her attacker sat just feet away, surrounded by his legal team. But Isabella's months of therapy had prepared her for this moment, and her testimony was powerful, consistent, and impossible to dismiss. Uncle Sam was ultimately convicted on multiple charges of sexual assault and sentenced to 8 years in prison. The sentence felt like justice to Isabella, though she knew that no amount of prison time could undo the trauma she had experienced or restore the innocence that had been stolen from her on Christmas Eve. More importantly, the conviction meant that Uncle Sam could never again use his position as a trusted family member to prey on vulnerable young women. 2 years after the Christmas Eve assault, Isabella sat in a conference room at a victim advocacy center, preparing to share her story publicly for the first time. The scared, traumatized college student who had once been too terrified to speak Uncle Sam's name had been transformed into a confident survivor advocate who used her voice to help other victims find their own courage. "I want you to understand something about Christmas Eve 2019, Isabella said, looking directly into the camera as she shared her story for an educational video about family abuse. That night was supposed to be about love, joy, and family togetherness. Instead, it became the night I learned that sometimes the people we trust most are capable of the deepest betrayal. But it also became the beginning of my journey to reclaim my power and use my voice to protect others." Isabella had changed her major from childhood development to social work, with a focus on helping survivors of sexual assault navigate the legal and emotional challenges of speaking out against their abusers. Her personal experience with trauma and healing had given her unique insight into the complex psychological factors that prevent victims from immediately reporting their abuse, especially when the perpetrator is a trusted family member. "The hardest part wasn't the assault itself," Isabella would tell audiences of survivors and their families. "The hardest part was the months of silence that followed. Carrying that terrible secret alone and feeling like speaking up would hurt the people I loved most. But I learned that silence only protects the abuser. My family didn't fall apart when I told the truth. They became stronger and more united than ever before." Isabella's relationship with her parents had indeed grown stronger through the process of healing from Uncle Sam's abuse. Miguel and Rosa had entered family therapy to work through their own guilt and trauma from learning about their daughter's assault and their failure to recognize the warning signs in Sam's behavior. They had also become advocates themselves, working with organizations that educated families about recognizing and preventing sexual abuse within family systems. "We failed our daughter by trusting Sam blindly for so many years," Miguel would tell other parents during educational presentations. "But we didn't fail her when it mattered most. When she found the courage to tell us the truth, we believed her immediately. We supported her completely, and we took action to protect her and seek justice. That's what every family needs to do when a survivor finds their voice." The Fernandez family's approach to Christmas had been forever changed by Uncle Sam's assault on Isabella. They no longer gathered in large groups or invited extended family members whose backgrounds and behaviors they hadn't carefully considered. But they had also discovered that Christmas could still be meaningful and joyful when it was celebrated with genuine love, transparency, and safety for all family members. "Christmas will never be the same as it was before," Isabella reflected during her victim advocacy work, "but it doesn't have to be ruined forever. I've learned to create new traditions, new memories, and new ways of celebrating that honor my healing journey and protect my sense of safety. Uncle Sam stole one Christmas from me, but he doesn't get to steal all the Christmases that are still to come." As our time with Isabella's story comes to an end, I want you to think about the incredible courage it took for her to break months of silence and speak the truth that would change her family forever. Think about the strength it required to face Uncle Sam in court, to endure the defense attorney's attempts to destroy her credibility, and to transform her trauma into a force for positive change in the world. What gave Isabella the final push to tell her mother the truth after months of carrying that terrible secret alone? Was it Uncle Sam's phone call suggesting another trip together? The therapeutic support she found at college? Or was it simply the realization that protecting her abuser was destroying her own life and future? How do you think you would have responded if you were Isabella's parent, learning this devastating truth about someone your family had trusted and loved for decades? Would you have been able to immediately believe and support your child, or would loyalty to family and shock at the accusations have complicated your response? Isabella's transformation from victim to survivor to advocate shows us that healing is possible even after the most devastating betrayals, and that speaking truth to power, even when that power exists within our own families and holiday traditions, is sometimes the most important thing we can do.